Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a topic many of you are keen to understand: how powerfully everyday lifestyle choices, exercise, diet, and sleep can influence ADHD symptoms.
Yeah.
We've sifted through, a stack of compelling sources, medical research, expert insights,
hmm
and our aim is pretty straightforward. Give you clear, practical information without, overwhelming you.
Right.
Think of this as your quick route to grasping how these daily activities can really impact focus, mood, and well-being if
hmm
you're living with ADHD.
Exactly. We know navigating all the information out there can be, well, a lot.
Totally.
So we've really focused on extracting the most important findings, those key insights that can make a real difference, without getting bogged down in too much detail.
Okay, perfect. Let's get right into it then. Starting with exercise.
Okay.
You might be surprised, actually. It's not just about burning off energy.
No, not at all.
Huh.
Our sources point to this really fascinating connection with your brain's chemistry.
How so?
Well, what's particularly interesting is how physical activity directly encourages the production of neurotransmitters, things like dopamine and norepinephrine.
Ah, the ones ADHD meds often target.
Exactly. The very same brain chemicals. They help improve attention, focus, mood. So exercise offers this kind of natural complementary way to support those brain functions.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just a temporary boost, right? The benefits go deeper,
They do. Exercise also enhances neuroplasticity.
which is the brain's ability to adapt and change.
Precisely. Its ability to form new connections.
Yeah.
And that's crucial for managing focus, impulse control, those executive functions that can sometimes be, well, a challenge with ADHD.
Right. Is there research backing this up?
Oh, definitely. To give you a concrete example, there was a 2012 study, I think, in the Journal of Attention Disorders.
Okay.
It really highlighted this. It found children with ADHD who did moderate to vigorous exercise about 45 minutes, 3 times a week, for 10 weeks, showed significant improvements
And what specifically?
in their cognitive abilities and behavior. Specifically, faster visual processing and, interestingly, better sustained auditory attention. They could listen for longer.
Wow, okay. And it gets even more compelling, doesn't it? I read something about new nerve cells.
Yes, neurogenesis. Exercise encourages the growth of new nerve cells, and it improves the brain's vascular system too. Better blood flow, better pathways.
And the type of exercise matters? It's not just running?
It seems so. Our sources indicate that more complex movements, think martial arts or ballet,
Okay.
and even things like acrobatic exercises in animal studies, they seem to benefit the cerebellum.
And the cerebellum is linked to fidgetiness in ADHD.
That's right, it's often more active. These complex activities seem to help regulate that, and they also increase something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Good stuff for the brain.
So for listeners, what's the practical advice here? What should people aim for?
Well, the general recommendation seems to be moderate intensity cardio. That's like where you can talk but maybe not sing comfortably.
Right.
Aim for about 30 to 40 minutes, maybe 4 or 5 times a week. But honestly, the most important thing is finding activities you genuinely enjoy.
Yeah. Otherwise, you won't stick with it.
Exactly. Consistency is key. And don't underestimate the power of social connection either.
Like team sports or working out with a friend.
Yeah, that can provide extra motivation. Sources also suggest including some resistance training, trying new functional movements, basically challenging your body in different ways.
Setting goals could help too, maybe, like training for a 5K or something.
Absolutely. Tangible goals like that can provide excellent focus.
It's also interesting how exercise can help with that internal restlessness, that kind of need for new stimulation that many with ADHD feel.
And increase overall alertness too.
And this is a big one. While obviously you must talk to your doctor first.
Always.
There's even a possibility for some people to reduce their stimulant medication dose if they have a really consistent exercise routine.
That's potentially a really significant benefit, yes.
Okay, let's switch gears. Diet, another huge factor.
It is. And there's a very direct link, between what you eat and how your brain operates.
Affecting focus, sleep, mood, everything.
Pretty much. Even the Harvard Health blog talks about how clean eating whole, unprocessed foods is linked to better emotional health generally.
Now, we need to be clear here. Diet doesn't cause ADHD, right?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And the American Academy of Pediatrics is clear on this too. It's not a substitute for medication or therapy.
But it can still make a difference for some people.
But our sources strongly suggest that, yes, for many, it can make a noticeable difference. There's consistent evidence, for instance, that protein tends to promote alertness,
Okay.
whereas lots of simple carbohydrates can sometimes lead to drowsiness.
And what about things like artificial colors and flavors? They come up a lot.
They do. There's a recurring theme about potential downsides. One source even specifically called out sugary, artificially colored cereals as not being ideal. You know the type.
Yeah. And there's actual research on this stuff.
There is. A 2010 study in pediatrics linked organophosphate pesticides, the kind found on conventional fruits and vegetables, to a higher likelihood of an ADHD diagnosis.
Suggesting organic might be better.
It suggests a possible advantage, yes. And another study, same year, Journal of Attention Disorders, found that a typical Western diet,
What's that defined as?
high in processed meats, fast food, sugary stuff, high-fat dairy, that kind of diet actually doubled the likelihood of an ADHD diagnosis compared to a healthier pattern.
Doubled. Wow, that's pretty striking.
It is. And it's really interesting to understand how nutrition impacts the ADHD brain. It's vital for, like, the basic function of brain cells.
Okay.
For the myelin sheath, that's the protective layer around nerve fibers that helps messages travel fast.
Right.
And for the performance of those key neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine.
So food literally builds and fuels the brain's communication system. What about sugar specifically, the glycemic index?
Yeah, GI is relevant. Low GI foods, think most fruits, oatmeal, bran, higher fiber cereals and pastas, beans, milk, plain yogurt. They give you a steadier release of sugar.
Which helps keep behavior and focus more even.
Exactly. High GI foods, on the other hand, fruit juices, cornflakes, sugary cereals, sweetened yogurts, they can cause those spikes and crashes in blood sugar.
Not ideal for focus. And I read something about acidic foods and meds.
Yes, that's a point worth noting. Acidic fruits and juices can sometimes interfere with how well short-acting stimulant medications are absorbed. Something to be aware of.
Good to know. You mentioned protein earlier for alertness. Is it also important for those neurotransmitters?
Absolutely essential. Protein provides the building blocks. Tryptophan, for example, is needed to make serotonin.
Okay.
And tyrosine is a precursor for dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine.
So starting the day with protein is a good idea.
Definitely recommended. A protein-rich breakfast and including lean protein throughout the day helps stabilize blood sugar and supports neurotransmitter production.
Any examples? What does a good breakfast look like?
Sources gave a few good ones. Granola with yogurt and an apple. Maybe eggs with whole grain toast and an orange. A veggie omelet with a bran muffin and some fruit.
Okay, those sound doable.
Or whole grain pancakes. Or waffles with berries and yogurt. Even cheese on whole grain toast with a pear. Lots of options.
What about fats? Are they important?
Hugely important, especially omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids like those in fish oil. They're key parts of brain cell membranes, help transport nutrients.
Right.
The issue is the typical Western diet often has an imbalance. Too much omega-6, not enough omega-3.
Where do we find omega-3s?
Fatty fish like salmon and tuna, soybeans, walnuts, flaxseed, pumpkin seeds. Increasing omega-3 intake may help improve mental focus and cognitive function.
Okay. And there was another supplement mentioned. PS.
Ah, yes, phosphatidylserine, or PS. Sources suggest it might help communication between brain cells, possibly improving mood, behavior, short-term memory. It might work alongside omega-3s or even on its own for some.
It's interesting. Then there are vitamins and minerals. Which ones are key?
Well, vitamin C is involved in making neurotransmitters. Vitamin B6 helps with dopamine and alertness. Iron is critical for dopamine. Low levels often correlate with more severe ADHD symptoms.
And zinc.
Zinc helps regulate dopamine too, and there's some suggestion it might make methylphenidate meds more effective. Low zinc is sometimes linked to inattention.
But we should be careful with supplements, right? Not just take huge doses.
Absolutely. Megavitamin therapy is strongly advised against. Always, always consult with a doctor or healthcare professional before starting any supplements. There can be interactions, even genetic factors to consider.
Okay. What about food sensitivities? Is that a real thing for ADHD?
Sources suggest it can be, particularly for younger children. Maybe up to 30% of toddlers or preschoolers might see benefits from an elimination diet, removing potential trigger foods.
How does that work?
Basically, you remove common suspects, then reintroduce foods one by one to see if there's a reaction. It's best done with guidance from a registered dietitian, though.
And it's less effective for adults.
Tends to be, yes. The sources were pretty specific about the list of unlikely triggers, too. Things like lamb, chicken, potatoes, rice, bananas, apples, certain veggies.
There was also that specific diet mentioned, the Feingold diet.
Right. It eliminates artificial colors, flavors, sweeteners, preservatives, and limits some natural compounds called salicylates.
Does it work?
Broad scientific support is somewhat limited, but some newer research suggests it might help a small group who are particularly sensitive to food chemicals. Anecdotally, some families report it helps them.
Okay, and the big one, sugar. What's the final word? Does it make ADHD worse?
Ah, the sugar debate. It's complicated. Many parents believe it has a negative impact.
Right.
But medical experts often point to studies, some from the 90s, that didn't find a direct link between sugar and behavior, specifically in ADHD.
So, sugar's fine.
Well, not exactly. Even if there isn't a direct causal link for ADHD behavior proven across the board, limiting sugary intake is still wise. It offers little nutritional value and can displace healthier foods.
And what about the artificial colors link again?
Reviews are mixed on sugar and colors, but there is some evidence linking artificial colors to adverse reactions in some children. And it is noteworthy that several studies found elimination diets did lead to statistically significant symptom reduction.
So it might be worth exploring for some, carefully.
Potentially, yes, with professional guidance.
Okay. Let's move to our third pillar, sleep. This is a big issue for many with ADHD, isn't it?
It really is. Sleep difficulties are very common.
What's the key advice from our sources?
One really practical tip is to only go to bed when you actually feel sleepy.
To avoid lying there getting frustrated.
Exactly. Minimize that time awake in bed. Another strategy is a kind of controlled sleep restriction.
How does that work?
If you can't sleep, don't just lie there tossing and turning. Get up for a short while. Do something relaxing, and this is important. Avoid bright light, screens, work, anything hyperstimulating.
Then try going back to bed.
Yes. The idea is to reassociate bed with sleep, not frustration. Establishing consistent bedtime rituals is also really important.
Like what?
Could be anything calming. Listening to relaxing music, reading a book or an audiobook, maybe caffeine-free tea, a warm bath or shower, gentle stretching, yoga, deep breathing. Sleep apps can be useful resources too.
And try not to take your worries to bed with you.
Definitely. It's best to leave responsibilities outside the bedroom. Maybe set aside time before bed to jot down tomorrow's to-do list or process things.
And the usual advice applies too, right? Avoiding caffeine, sugar, nicotine, alcohol close to bedtime.
Yes, generally for at least 4 to 6 hours before bed. And avoiding intense evening exercise too.
What about waking up?
Regulating your sleep schedule by waking up around the same time every day, even on weekends, is crucial for setting that natural body clock.
Aiming for 7 to 8 hours for adults.
That's the general recommendation, yes. And avoiding daytime naps, as tempting as they might be.
Finally, the bedroom environment itself.
Optimize it. Make it quiet, dark, cool, comfortable. Think noise-canceling earphones, blackout curtains, maybe a white noise machine, an eye mask, whatever works for you.
And if problems persist?
Sources briefly mention psychiatric treatment or medication for insomnia, usually short-term, and the possibility of referral to sleep disorder specialists for more complex issues.
Okay. We also looked at a broader review focusing just on dietary patterns and supplements. What did that add?
Well, it sort of confirmed the bigger picture. Unhealthy dietary patterns, junk food, processed, Western-like, are positively associated with ADHD.
While healthier ones like Mediterranean, DAHH, vegetarian are inversely associated.
Exactly. It also highlighted some specific nutrient observations. Children with ADHD often showed lower protein intake, but higher simple sugars.
And lower levels of certain vitamins and minerals?
Yes, things like B1, B2, C, zinc, calcium in their diet, and frequently reduced plasma levels, so levels in their blood of zinc, copper, iron, magnesium, selenium, vitamins A and D, and those omega-3 fatty acids, PUFAs.
Any specific supplement findings stand out?
Vitamin D supplementation seemed potentially helpful, especially for those low to begin with. And interestingly, vitamin D plus magnesium together showed benefits for emotional and behavioral issues in kids already on meds.
What about zinc and iron again?
Some improvements seen with supplementation, particularly zinc, but the findings are a bit inconsistent, often depending on the person's baseline levels.
And omega-3s.
Still mixed results on core ADHD symptoms. Higher doses of EPA, one type of omega-3, might help hyperactivity. Some promise in preschoolers, but other studies didn't show significant benefits based on parent-teacher ratings.
Any other supplements? Probiotics?
Probiotics showed some promise, especially Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG, for cognitive function and quality of life. Multi-species probiotics may be for ADHD and anxiety, but the evidence is still limited. Symbiotics, that's probiotics plus prebiotics, less direct impact on ADHD symptoms themselves.
Interesting. And it mentioned the DAHH diet again.
Yes, one study showed improvement with the DHH diet, and it revisited elimination diets, particularly the few foods diet, suggesting it can identify sensitivities and might help certain subgroups who don't respond well to meds.
But with a caution.
Yes, a strong caution about potential nutritional deficiencies with really restrictive diets, and also advising against relying on certain blood tests, like IgG tests, to guide them.
It really does sound complex, needing a very individual approach.
Absolutely. That's a key takeaway.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, the core message seems pretty clear, doesn't it? Making thoughtful choices about exercise, diet, and sleep, these fundamental things can have a really significant impact on ADHD symptoms.
Definitely. They directly influence the brain's chemistry and function.
We've uncovered some really key connections, haven't we?
Well, the way exercise can boost neurotransmitters, almost like meds in a way.
Right. And the specific roles of protein versus low GI carbs for stable energy and focus.
Yeah, and the brain's need for healthy fats, those omega-3s, and key vitamins and minerals.
The potential, for some at least, of targeted elimination diets.
And that vital, often underestimated link between good quality sleep and managing ADHD day to day.
It's definitely not simple, though. It's a multifaceted issue, and a personalized strategy seems crucial.
Absolutely. And these lifestyle adjustments often work best in conjunction with traditional treatments, medication, therapy, not necessarily instead of them.
Right. It's about adding tools to the toolbox.
Exactly. Which brings us to a final thought, maybe, for you listening.
Okay.
Given how profound the influence of these everyday things, exercise, food, sleep can be on the ADHD brain, what's one small, manageable change you could maybe explore this week?
Just one thing.
Yeah, maybe a short walk at lunchtime, or trying one protein-rich breakfast, or setting a consistent bedtime alarm. Just something small and sustainable. It might just be the first step towards experiencing a positive shift, in focus or just general well-being.